Can you hear me? Can you see me? I don't know where we're at, kind of. Let me know. How's the sound? How are the things? Ooh, that's going to throw me off. Awesome. Look at us, guys. We're doing things. We're still a minute or so early. I always just get nervous when we do these that it's not going to connect. I get kind of panicked about it. Awesome. Thank you. Be sure if your name is not your name, tell me what your name is. That way I know who I'm addressing. We've got Raina and Natalie. Currently have 9 people watching. Olivia, hello. Remember to like and subscribe. Not really. If you don't want to subscribe, I understand. I know the whole ratio thing. Got to be sure that you have a good ratio of things. While we're waiting here, I'm going to tell you a few things that you can do to help yourself. In reading AMSCO is one way that you can kind of help yourself with the things. There's an AMSCO book for U.S. history, and I believe we're covering chapter 2 and 3 for this particular unit. If you're finding phoner kind of dry, that's a nice way to go. Another thing you can do is look into that. The word that I'm looking for has to do with the packet, the period packet. My students, it should be number 201 in the Google Classroom, and it has all of the things. Oh, we sped through our face routine. I'm here for that, Sabrina. I feel that. I didn't speed home because there was a lot of traffic, but I did park in a place where I'm not supposed to park. And so when I came in, I told my Alexa to remind me to move my car because I'm a little nervous about. And now Alexa just asked me, like, what should I remind you of? But good times. Tangents, because, it's things. So basically, here's how this is going to run. I'm going to. Never mind, Alexa. Never mind. There you go. I don't. Okay, thank you, Alexa. Sorry about that. So basically, I'm going to state like a content, and I want you guys to look at your notes because this isn't just Miss Puckett like telling you what's on the test. This isn't Miss Puckett just telling you what's on the test. This is Miss Puckett giving you an opportunity to ask questions. I feel like I was telling some people I was doing this while I was at my meeting, and they said, "Well, why are you doing that?" And I said, kids feel more comfortable asking for you to ask questions and any confusion that you have, that we can kind of work through that together. Another thing and another aspect that I want us to think about is also ways that you can help yourself, because after the live stream, I don't want you to just feel like, well, I did the live stream, so now I'm good. Give yourself an opportunity to review, give yourself an opportunity to read. Sabrina, usually I try to make it for no more than an hour, sometimes 30, 45 minutes. Honestly, I'd love it if it was done by 8, but we'll see. Last year, I feel like we had some that dragged on for a long time, but that was largely because Miss Puckett struggled with human geography. Human geography is not Miss Puckett's gift. So we shall see. Apparently, according to YouTube, I can stream for 8 hours, but we are not going to do that. Anyways, so let's get started, and we're going to get started with kind of the first content for this. The first content we had for this specifically, and I'm going to double check that I'm correct here. Okay. So the first thing we're going to look at is European colonization. First thing we're going to look at is European colonization. I need to adjust my camera, so guys, give me a little help. Let me know if I get off the screen or anything like that. Because sometimes I don't know because I'm not really looking at my screen, because I'm looking at my paper, which is a whole other thing. Okay. Okay. So we're going to be looking at the French, Spanish. I'll be sure you have your notes out. The Dutch and the British. And if you're not talking in the chat, guys, it makes it a lot more fun for everyone when people talk in the chat. And I say that you will be silenced. There's a way for me to silence you if it goes through, if it's not helpful, if what you're saying isn't productive. So text your friends, let them know that this is happening. This was kind of a last minute thing. It was very spur of the moment because, that's where Miss Puckett lives. Anyways, so starting with the French, tell me something you know about the French, the Spanish, the Dutch, or the British when it comes to colonizing the New World. And I just want you guys to just start saying things, start writing things down. What are some things that you know? These are like always those awkward moments when Ms. Puckett is like waiting for my words to catch up with the live stream because it says it's live, but there's like a 5-second delay. It's like you are being like, we're saying things, and you're not saying anything. That's not true. It's just I'm waiting for responses to roll in. I don't think I'm gonna have to Uber to school tomorrow. That would be absurd. I just had a friend that had to Uber to school once because his car wouldn't start. That kind of made me laugh. Donuts. Am I missing you guys? No, no one said anything. Say something I'm giving. I'm not going to though. I'm just gonna wait. Sing songs because it's fun. This kid was like, "Yeah, I like that theme song you made up last night." And I was like, "What?" And like halfway through the live stream, you were like, "Do you like my theme song?" Apparently, that's where Miss Puckett lives. Miss Puckett lives for theme songs. Remember, you're trying to tell me what do you know about the French? What do you know about the Spanish? Maybe the Dutch? Oh no, something's wrong. Oh no, something's happening. Maybe you were responding. Maybe my computer's triggered. Okay, there we go. Hey, there you all are. Everyone's here. Okay, positive relationships with the natives for the Dutch. Guys, my computer just like was like, no, everything's terrible, and like everything went black, and I was like, no, don't kick us off the live stream, anything but that. Positive relationships with the natives, and if it was positive, it was also kind of like not. They just didn't care. They were like, okay, guys, you're here, like, do you? The Dutch didn't have very strict slavery. Ooh, I'll say this though about the Dutch and slavery though. Remember, they were the greatest perpetrators of the slave trade. They were some of the greatest perpetrators of that. They were very religiously tolerant, especially for the time. Okay, the Dutch have. Ooh. Oh goodness, look at all you guys. You guys are killing it. That's awesome. Olivia, well, the Dutch didn't have very strict slavery rules. The Dutch were more interested in establishing trading posts. That's true. That's why I drew these little arrows. All right. The Dutch didn't have the worst slavery. That's true. Let's see. The French were on good terms with the Indians due to the fur trade. Ooh, Ben, good addition. Good addition here. You have the fur trade, and it helped them with the Native Americans. That's why I drew a little heart next to the French. When I taught 8th grade, I'd always ask, like, what is known as the city of love? And in every class, it'd always be a boy that'd be like, there is. And I would always be like, that's always just like surprised me. That was always the boy that answered. French made money through the fur trade and fishing. Ooh, good. You remembered fishing, Cece. That's awesome. Okay, the Dutch were strong advocates of the slave trade. So true. So whenever I write aggressive out like that, all like as I'm writing, I'm like AGGRESSIVE, aggressive. The French assimilated into the Native American culture and married many Native women. That's true. A lot of intermarriages, and it was like a positive thing. Look at you guys. You guys are using this in a great way. I love this. French fur trade. Yes, French fancy furs. The British soon began colonizing the New World, where they saw how, yes, it was because of how they saw how successful the Spanish were. The Spanish used Indians as slaves and established encomiendas. Oh, the French learned how to catch beavers from the Indians. It's so true, so true. The encomienda system. You guys are making me feel like a really fancy YouTuber because I'm having like scroll through. I'm like, guys, great comments, great comments. The Spanish treated natives violently when they imposed on them the Spanish cultural elements such as Catholicism. Very true. The British had indentured servants originally, and then they turned to slavery. So aside from, the French did not have many slaves on the main North American continent, but had a large amount in Haiti where they were used on sugar plantations. Very, very true. God, gold, glory things, yes. Things Spanish though. Remember, Spanish forcing Catholicism. The British. What were the British religion that you needed to be? The British were in Barbados. Yes. Barbosas or Barbados? Because now, yeah, you're confusing me a little bit. British had lots of Puritans. They had the Puritans and the Pilgrims, which are actually two different groups. Puritans want to purify the Church of England. Wanted to purify the Church of England, and the Pilgrims wanted to separate entirely. So there's still words like separate, and that I'm like separate, because that doesn't happen as you get older. That doesn't change. From Anglican Church. Okay, Virginia is affiliated with the Anglican Church. Oh, hey, Case. Oh, thanks for stopping in. So good to see you, bud. I hope that you got the right bus to school this year. English colonies were much more populated than any other colony in North America. Very good. Who had slaves in Haiti? That would be the French. The French had slaves in Haiti. Good call. I like you guys are helping each other out. Ooh, the Quakers, tolerant of religion, women's rights. Yes. Okay. Bye, Case. Good chat. Quakers tolerant of religion. Very good. The Quakers were tolerant. Okay, and so now that we've kind of like established all of that, I feel like that's kind of our little brief overview as to like why was everyone here. And then I kind of want to move into the early colonies, and specifically, I want to talk about the Massachusetts colony, the colonies that kind of came out of Massachusetts and the New England area. Is that what you guys want to move on to? So we can kind of talk about Massachusetts. We can talk about Virginia. Does that sound like a plan? Is that something you guys want to do? Guys, you guys are so, it's like ready for this. You're like, yes, please, yeah, do that. I'm like, okay, sure. Okay, Danny Nico, I know I had you last year, but it still confuses me that your name isn't your name. Who's Danny Nico? Okay, so this is something I did in a lot of my classes. Is we drew we're more aggressive with the slaves, the Chesapeake, or the Carolinas, and why? Oh, sounds like a question. There you are, Danielle. Okay. I was like, I know that I know you. Um Bree, we're happy to have you. I think it depends on what you're looking at. In terms of, I think it just depends on what you're looking at. Somebody wants to help Ben out with that question. I'm going to kind of get us set up with the our next venture. And guys, you're about to witness Miss Puckett's really awesome artistry. When I say awesome artistry, I mean it's not necessarily my gift to the world, but we do try. Okay, so if something like that. So basically, that's Massachusetts. Does everyone agree that that's Massachusetts? And you're like, whoa, I've never seen something look so much like Massachusetts before in my life. My response to you would be, of course, because you've never seen me draw Massachusetts. And that is clearly a gem that you have been missing out on. So we have Massachusetts here. And Massachusetts is first settled early on. Always. I had this like unicorn pen holder, and I accidentally dumped it out. And, like all my pens went everywhere. And I was like, no, all of my pens are gone. I'm like finding random markers places, so that's a good time. So does anyone have any like specific? I'm gonna go through and tell the story, but does anyone have any specific like questions? Like this always confuses me because first of all, I don't want to confuse you more. Secondly, if I can help kind of ease your confusion, I'd like to. Zach, I found it, in my mind's eye. It's a really weird phrase that I never quite understood, but it always kind of creeped me out. So you're welcome for that little bit of creep. So right here, so let's say, and I don't know how geographically accurate this is going to be, but I'm pretty sure. Now I have to look it up. Hold on. Sorry, guys. I need to pull up the map real quick so I can be sure that I'm drawing these things in the right places. Okay. I'm fine. Everything's fine. Okay, so right here, you guys remember, please let me know if there's anything specific that's confusing you about these so that I can help you with that. So the first thing we have like down here, this is like this area, this is like the Plymouth area. Do not call it Plymouth. You sound ignorant when you say Plymouth. Please do not be a Plymouth person. The Massachusetts Bay Colony is right about somewhere in here. This is the Massachusetts Bay. The Massachusetts Bay Colony, which eventually is called Boston. If you're ever thinking like, hey, where did that crazy thing happen? From here on out, for a while at least, that crazy thing that happened, it probably happened in Boston. Where was that thing that happened where people lost their cool and acted like really crazy? It was probably Boston. So when originally the Plymouth settlers came in, the Plymouth settlers come in and they come in seeking religious freedom. They come in wanting to separate from the Church of England entirely. They're like, you know what, that was a messed up situation. We don't like it. We don't want it. We want to create our own religion off of that's not even a purified version of the Anglican Church. It's a new church entirely. We want it to be reformed. The Puritans come. Was Massachusetts Bay Colony one of the first colonies established? It was one of the first. It was one of the first. It was like in 1630. Like Plymouth comes about in like 1620. This one comes about in like 1630, I think. Yeah. Okay. I double checked that and I think that's right. But guys, don't worry about the dates so much. Like these are one of the the reason we look at Massachusetts and Virginia is because they were two very early colonies established. So when we're looking at Massachusetts Bay, Boston versus Plymouth, the Plymouth Pilgrims, they come in and Sabrina, no, they are very different. The Pilgrims come, and this actually, because I had a lot of kids that actually asked this, so I'm glad, Sabrina, I'm glad you asked. So make sure you can see this. There are the Puritans, and then there are Pilgrims. We have Puritans and we have Pilgrims. Puritans want to purify the Church of England. They simply want to reform it. They say, you know what, it was a good situation, but there was just some corrupt leadership. That was our main issue, is that there's corrupt leadership. Whereas the Pilgrims wanted to separate entirely. They were separatists. Now, were they both highly religious? Absolutely. Did they both come for religious reasons? Absolutely. But they were two very different settlements. Whereas the Plymouth colony is, history remembers, is a very like peaceful colony, like a relatively peaceful colony. Like history remembers them as the ones who had the ones who kind of are the stars of Thanksgiving and getting through that first winter with the natives, help and things like that. Like that's what the Pilgrims are remembered for. The Puritans, history does not remember the Puritans well. So the Puritans of Boston, of this area, and so it's kind of a little. I don't know how much that visual kind of like helps you see. Did the Puritans and Pilgrims of each other? I mean, Josh, I'm sure they did, but it was kind of like, okay, like you have your colony, we have our colony, and like it's fine. We're different, but we're fine. I don't, I couldn't really tell you much beyond that. That's a great question. That's a great thing to look up. Um, so something interesting here is that we have the creation of, let's see. So let me first start this. John Winthrop is the primary leader and founder of the Puritans. John Winthrop. He's a primary leader of the Puritans. William Bradford is the leader of the Pilgrims. William Bradford is the leader of the Pilgrims. And so when you're thinking in terms of like who's who, like if it helps you remember that like if you separate William Bradford's name, the end of it says Ford. If that helps you remember it, by all means, John Winthrop. I'll have to come up with one for him. He drop kicks people out of his colony. I don't know. It's late. I'm tired. So basically, John Winthrop establishes this colony that he actually refers to as a city on a hill, and he wants to establish this like perfect society. And in this society, when you paid taxes, your money went to the government. And keep in mind, John Winthrop is not only the government leader, but he was also the religious leader. So your taxes went to the government. Your taxes went to the church. Money went not only to the government but to the church, because to be fair, all taxes go to the government. If you wanted to vote, you had to be a member of the church. If you essentially, the church kind of was in charge of everything. The church was in charge of everything. And it is kind of because of it's because of that it's going to cause a lot of problems. And if you had the audacity to disagree, you are going to be put in some really hot water. Can anyone think of the person? There's two people who disagreed. Actually, I mean, there were several people who disagreed. There's two who disagree and are kicked out, and they form their own colony. Ben, thank you for subscribing. There's two people who create one colony, and the other guy who leaves kind of on his own accord, and he creates another colony. Can you guys tell me what colonies they create? Maybe try to do some name dropping. Winthrop, pure winner, Puritan Winthrop. There you go. Oh, I like that, Grace. Good call. Good call. And Hutchinson, Roger Williams, and they form Rhode Island. Ah, look at you guys knowing things. Oh, I'm so happy. I'm so proud. Okay, give me 1 second. Let me be sure I'm saying some things right. I need to be sure I'm not saying anything that's going to contradict with anything else. That's really what this is. Okay, so sorry. Thanks, Ben. Thomas Hooker in Connecticut. Look at you guys remembering things. Roger Williams, Rhode Island. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of you remembering this. Okay, so we're going to have our first little group of dissenters are going to go right below Massachusetts. They're going to go right below Massachusetts, and they're going to form this little like place that they're going to call it Rhode Island. And then there's going to be another guy, and he's going to decide to leave and form a little colony called Connecticut. Now, I did something that was like not a great idea, and I realized it like soon after I did it. I moved my I usually like write the stuff about Connecticut and Rhode Island right here, but now I have Pilgrims and Puritans there, so that's a little rough. So now we're going to kind of arrow the information about Rhode Island over here. Okay, and then Connecticut will be on the other side. So, oh, hey Tony. Okay, so Rhode Island. So basically, Roger Williams decides, you know what? He decides, you know what, John Winthrop, I don't agree with you. There's some things that I don't necessarily think are right about your church and the way you're doing things. And so he gets kicked out and he decides to form his colony, Rhode Island. So Roger Williams, oh goodness, establishes Rhode Island kind of on the tenet kind of freedom of religion, separation of church and state. He was a big advocate that there should not be this like direct line. I used to call them like Rebel Island or Rude Island because they kind of they're pretty adventurous. And actually, if you know what the capital of Rhode Island is, it's a place called Providence. And Providence, the word actually means in the shelter of God's care. And so when they got kicked out of the Massachusetts Bay Colony, they go to seek. They leave and they're seeking refuge. They're seeking safety, and so they established this. So Roger Williams establishes Rhode Island on the tenet of freedom of religion. And to be fair, I think it was mostly the Christian religion, but I could be wrong. But mostly it's separation of church and state. Now, there's somebody else who also gets kicked out and um, also goes to Massachusetts, and that would be Anne Hutchinson. And Anne Hutchinson gets kicked out because she has the 1000% utter audacity. She had the audacity to say that God spoke to her, and they were like, God doesn't speak to women. And it's actually really funny because the way that she defended herself was uses scripture to defend herself, and and in doing this, it infuriates the people who are persecuting her. And so, sorry, I'm laughing. Um, so they basically, and to the Puritans, knowing about the Bible was very, very important. That's why, like, guys, that's why like Harvard is established. It's to train priests or to change, maybe not priests, preachers, and to train clergymen. It was to train oh my gosh, if I can't speak, that's going to be my life. Um, it was to train people in how and being literate in how they could read the Bible. And so when Anne Hutchinson has the audacity to say that she can speak to God, they're like, here's the thing, God doesn't speak to the women, the devil must be in you. And they kick her out too. And so she also ends up at Rhode Island. And guys, is it Anne with an E? I never remember. Ooh, Anne Hutchinson. So when all of that goes down, that's Rhode Island. Blessings. Things and stuff that are in my head. Okay, so that's and Coleman. I think you asked if once they left if they had any issues with each other. I mean, they weren't like tribes trying to take over each other's land. It was kind of like, let's just leave. Let's just leave. Like we're gonna get out of your hair. You just stay away from us. We'll stay away from you. Now, when the Connecticut colony is formed, that is formed by a guy by the name of Thomas Hooker. And Thomas Hooker kind of leaves on much better terms. Um, Thomas Hooker leaves, and he's like friends with John Winthrop, and he's kind of like, here's this thing, dude. Like, I understand what you're trying to do here, but I just don't think it's being executed well. I feel like I need to remove myself from this, but I still respect you. So he leaves, and there's kind of this sense of there's more of a sense of respect. And Thomas Hooker leaves and creates Connecticut. Now, Connecticut, they were at the Fundamental Orders of Connecticut. If you ever go to Connecticut, they call themselves the Constitution State because it's the first written constitution in the New World. Connecticut is spelled Connect I Cut. It's the first written constitution in the New World. Thomas Hooker Connected cut himself to Massachusetts. That's right, he did. You guys are cracking me up with this. I love it. And another thing that happens is he allows non-church members to vote. To be fair, I think they still had to be landowning men, but still. You know how tired I am when I can't spell words like members correctly. Okay, so that's kind of like, I know that seems really aggressive and it seems like a lot, and you don't necessarily have to memorize all of this, but this is just kind of to show you the story and help you better understand like where these three specifically come from, if that makes sense. Yeah. So that's kind of Massachusetts. And then like to be fair, the Pilgrims though they all wanted to land where Words are tough, Coleman. Thank you for understanding. I appreciate your understanding because sometimes this pocket can't find her words because they leave me and they run away. I'm trying to think what I was going to say next. So the next colony we're going to look at is Virginia. Do you guys know? Do you guys have any questions about Massachusetts? Is pretty aggressive. It's a pretty aggressive. Like the story of Massachusetts is a pretty intense one. How do you guys feel about Massachusetts? Is there anything more you want to know? Any questions you have? Oh, I'm glad that you like this, Sabrina. Makes me happy. How were the settler-native relations in Massachusetts? It was pretty positive. They were not there to like, um, they were not there to be like hateful and ugly. They were not there to like take over the land and we're gonna come and we're just gonna like take over this. They were like, the thing is, if we can establish this model society, that's what we want. That's what the Puritans wanted. The Pilgrims were like, if we can get away from being persecuted, let's do it. Yes, Sid, both the Puritans and Pilgrims are from Massachusetts. The Puritans are in Massachusetts Bay, which is now Boston. The Pilgrims are in Plymouth, which is like further away. They settled about within a 10-year difference from each other. Okay, so someone catches it up because he's behind. Not really behind, he just wasn't here. And Sid, you're gonna be able to watch the first part a little bit later. I like how this definitely shows that I totally got off the page sometimes and I accidentally draw on the next paper. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at is the Virginia colony. So let's look at Virginia. And like, I don't know how to draw Virginia. Oh, I don't know how to say your name, so please tell me your name. Okay, tell me your name, please, so I can, and if you can like do a phonetic spelling, please tell me. Usac and Colt. That's great, Coleman. That's solid. Like was it saying self-governing? I mean, it was a form of self-government in the New World. It was a form of self-government in the New World. It was the first written constitution in the New World. It allowed non-church members to vote. It just kind of, and a constitution is a form of government. Okay. Lasia? Lasia? Well, Kaletsi's here. Kaletsi, this isn't your class, dude. Okay, I actually just looked at the picture of Virginia because I was getting a little. I wanted it since I just drew a picture of the other one. I wanted to draw a picture of this one too. Guys, look, it's Virginia. It's basically the same thing. You're like, wow, that's amazing. I've never seen anything like it. Come on, guys. Oof. Okay. So we have Virginia here. Virginia and like kind of Jesus mad at me. Calm down. Okay. Lacia. All right. So, can you guys see anything? Is it all green? Okay. Is it back now? Oof, it's still green for me. You guys hear me when I'm talking? Let me know. My screen is green as well. It was kind of being temperamental a second ago. Sometimes my computer is like, rage. Why are you having us do things? We don't like it. Grouchy. Okay, so you guys can see it? Okay, well, it's not on my computer, so that's fine. Cool, 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 cool. All right, so the Virginia colony. The Virginia colony is established, or the Virginia colony is established in 1607. The Virginia colony is that better? Okay, maybe. Why isn't it showing me things? Maybe I need to make it go. So I have to be on y'all's screen too. I'm trying to be on y'all's screen too, so I can kind of see what you're seeing. So Virginia is established in 1607, and Virginia is established by the Virginia Company. The Virginia Company is a joint stock company. They basically decide to send people over to see what can Britain get out of the New World. They want to see what Britain can get out of the New World. Once they try to figure out what Britain can get out of the New World, they're going to try to see what Britain can get out of the New World. Or I'm going to refresh my page. I don't think it should stop anything from you guys. Okay, there we are. Now I can see. Okay, now I see what you guys see. Everything's better. Everything's better. Okay. So the Virginia Company is a joint stock company that they establish. Emily, good to see you. Oof, is that better? Like I keep trying to move it down. Okay. So they send over all these people to try to find gold. They think, well, the Spanish found gold, so we're gonna find gold. So basically, they go over there with hopes of dreaming of gold, dreaming of all the gold and the things. And because of that moment, when the Virginia colony thinks that they're going to find all of the gold and all of the things, they send all these people over. And what gender was primarily sent? What gender was it primarily? For glory, God, and gold in the Virginia Company. And that's what guys. That's like my favorite thing. So it was mostly men who come thinking they're going to find all of this gold and they're going to get real rich and it's going to happen really fast. Um, as they said in the song from Pocahontas, on the beaches of Virginia, there's diamonds like debris and silver rivers flowing gold you pick right off the tree. A nugget for my Winnie and another one for me, and all the rest will go to the Virginia Company. Um, which basically said like they believed that they were going to be like swimming in riches. They weren't going to have to work for anything for the rest of their lives. They were going to be set up. Turns out when they arrive to the New World, when they arrive to the New World, they do not get gold. They don't get gold, and instead, um, what's it called? Instead, they are met with like grassy, like swamplands. This is what Miss Puckett thinks like swamps look like as drawn by like a 4-year-old. Look, guys, it's a swamp. Because also water. Okay, so okay, so that's basically where they land. They land in a swamp. The swamp is riddled with mosquitoes. They land in a swamp, and no one wants to work. They land in a swamp, and no one wants to work. So essentially, what happens is because they land in a swamp and no one wants to work, John Smith comes up with kind of their new rule of law because he kind of has to take on the role of a good coach. Ben, did John Smith really have a thing with Pocahontas? Pocahontas was actually like 14 years old at the time. that's kind of mythical. Like, it's kind of the thing of legends, but apparently it's like not super true. She did marry John Rolfe. She did end up marrying John Rolfe and like went to the New World and was like, she was like paraded around London as like the exotic thing from the New Americas. Um, they stated at one point they'd rather starve than farm, which is like, that's what a mood indeed. What a mood indeed. Jenny, I don't think you said that. That's an excellent phrase for it. And John Smith was like, here's the thing, you don't work, you don't eat. He who does not work, neither shall he eat. And he like lays into them about that. Max, you're here. Okay, so John Smith says, he who does not work, neither shall he eat. And so when he is in charge, everyone starts doing their job. He makes Jamestown sustainable. Then he gets captured by Indians, and everything falls apart because when the coach doesn't tell the players to work out, nobody does their job. So when the people of Jamestown, when he gets captured by the natives, who actually really like him, and they think he's like, they keep him longer than they expected to, because they thought he was like, they liked him a lot. But then he ends up going back and he's like, what's happening? Because then like Jamestown enters like a starving time. Like one man tries to like eat his pregnant wife. Like they're like almost resulting to cannibalism. Like it's not good. You explain what Smith's autocratic rule was like? It's mostly just like he ruled like a coach. Like his whole thing was to make the colony sustainable. It wasn't about like, and he was a great leader, but he was one of those people who people naturally followed as well. And so essentially, he ends up having to go back to England because he's like sick or something happens. He has to return. And then your boy, then the whole colony ends up like, they actually have to, I think, pack up the colony and everybody leaves. Not everybody leaves, but like the colony gets a lot smaller and does not do as well without him. But then John Rawls comes along on a boat and makes, I don't know what I'm making here, but look at it. John Rawls comes and brings a new strain of tobacco from the West Indies, and it was super illegal for him to sneak it in, but he did, and so he comes in and he brings tobacco from the West Indies, and oh man, he brings tobacco from the West Indies. Oh, and he makes the colony profitable. John Smith makes it sustainable. John Rolfe makes it profitable. Why can we have a Jimothy do something historic? Same. Oh, Dallas, I'm glad you're liking this. Happy to see you. John Smith makes it sustainable. John Rolfe helps makes it profitable. And before we know it, like tobacco is a huge cash crop, and it is making all kinds of money for the Chesapeake colonies. Now, that said, it also causes some problems though, because when we're looking at what is like who's working to grow all these cash crops, oh my gosh, profitable. I love that. John Smith, out there. Don't worry, I got you. At one point, doesn't the Virginia Company lose its charter? It does. They do lose. Yeah. Yes, they do, Josh. I couldn't exactly tell you when. That's not super pertinent to what we're talking about, but I appreciate you asking those questions. You're asking really great questions. So basically, though, with all these cash crops, there has to be laborers. And originally in Virginia starts off Someone has to be digging in the dirt. Someone has to be doing the labor. It started out with indentured servants. And then it went from indentured servants to African slaves. Can anyone tell me what kind of turned that around? What made them go from indentured servants to African slaves? That would be Bacon's Rebellion. You know, those are supposed to be like, I was trying to draw, I was trying to draw Bacon so that you would remember when you're looking at this, that Bacon's Rebellion is what took them from one to the other. That was me trying to be funny. I don't know. It was a thought. It was an idea. Did we invent cigars and cigarettes in America? No. We didn't invent them, Ben, because all of the tobacco did not stay in America. The tobacco, because there was no America really. The tobacco went back to England, and we gave England great things like lung cancer and lung diseases and all of that because they would smoke it in their pipes. So Bacon's Rebellion basically makes it to where people who want to have some kind of labor working their fields, they want someone who doesn't have a chance to leave. They want someone who's not going to be quite as rebellious. So they decide they can oppress African slaves better than they could oppress indentured servants because indentured servants will eventually leave. Okay, so that's kind of where I'm at for that. There you go. That's very true. That's very true. What other questions do you guys have about Virginia and the Chesapeake colonies? I'm going to do some checking on things for myself right now. These are the two like big colonies, and then we'll also look at the other ones too. Can you guys tell me also what can you guys tell me what Bacon's Rebellion was? Somebody tell me what Bacon's Rebellion was, because I want somebody to talk about that. If it's in y'all's chat, then I feel like that's a good place. If you don't know what okay, and I'm seeing some good things. Where was Chesapeake located? It's located by Virginia. It's in Virginia, but you like more specific location. It's by something called the Chesapeake Bay. So it's kind of, I think it's closer to like the south. I want to say it's in the southern part of Virginia, but honestly, I would just like pull up the map and look. The House of Burgesses. Oh, Sid, I'm so glad you mentioned that. I'm so glad you mentioned that. So because of all this business that's happening, all of the things are happening for Virginia. So because all the things are happening, they're growing very quickly. They become like America's first boom town, especially with the growth of tobacco. And so because of that, they're going to need to establish a representative government. And so they established the first representative government in the New World through the House of Burgesses. Sabrina, so when we're talking indentured servant, somebody asked what's an indentured servant. So an indentured servant was somebody who they either are in debt or in order to pay off someone's debt, they had to be in order to pay off someone's debt, they were Oh, they had to work in servitude. Sometimes it was for passage to the New World, but not necessarily. Where does that say real? Oh no, sorry. Antonia, it says representative. It does not say real. It says representative. First representative government in the New World. Think about how like we have representatives, like House of Burgesses, House of Representatives. The words are kind of interchangeable. The Bacon's rebellions were then when the indentured servants were mad and they weren't getting land, so they rebelled, and the government didn't give the servants the land because he favored the governor didn't give the servants the land because he favored Indians. It's very true. Okay. Get some good stuff. Okay. So I'm going to move on to the Headright system. Basically, the government gave 50 acres to people who came to the New World. They received one headright each time someone paid for the passage of another individual. So indentured servants had little or no chance to own land, and they stayed poor because the land kept being taken up by other people, essentially. You guys crack me up with your little carrots. They had high mortality rates. That's very true, Eli. What was the Indians' relationship with the Virginians, with and without John Smith? Without John Smith, not super great. With John Smith, it was like okay, but Virginia had a much more tumultuous relationship with Native Americans for sure. Okay, so I'm going to move on to like the other colonies that you need to know about. Yes, Josh, that would be correct. So I'm going to talk about other colonies that you'll need to know about. So I'm going to put my paper here, move my papes, move it up. And so we're going to have the new Amsterdam. Amsterdam, the New Netherlands, kind of like in my head, go down the colonies. You have Maryland, you have Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania, we have South Carolina, and like there's North Carolina, but we're not going to talk about North Carolina, and we have Georgia. These are the primary ones that we're going to talk about. Oh, the first and the second New Netherlands and New Amsterdam, guys, that's just New York. Originally, it was settled by the Dutch, and then the Dutch lose it to the British. Somebody asked, "Do you need to know Spanish Florida?" I mean, not right now. We don't really acquire Florida for a while. That happens during James Monroe's presidency. Where are those New Amsterdam and Netherlands guys? It's just New York. That's all it is. It's New York. Ushna, I'm not sure. I don't think so. So Maryland, the easiest way to remember Maryland is Mary, founded for the Catholic Church. One of the haven for Catholics. In fact, they have even had a thing that was called Maryland Act, like Toleration Act. It was about being tolerant of other religions. Antonia, do you need about Stuyvesant? I mean, he was the more oppressive one about religion, but like not really. Mary had a little land. Cute. Georgia is known as the Peach State. Why are they not? Why are they known for rice? Georgia wasn't exactly known for rice as much as South Carolina was. South Carolina was known for rice, and you guys learned a little bit about what slavery in the Carolinas were like, in the deep South, Carolina and Georgia. Pennsylvania is super interesting. That's the one with the Quakers. The Quakers, who were like a very like woke colony for this time, this like time frame. The Quakers were like, what I love about this is that the Quakers, I'm reminding you, move my car. Alexa, remind me in 15 minutes to move my car. Okay, I'll remind you in 15 minutes. Guys, Alexa's in her feelings about things. I'm reminding you, move my car. Alexa, off. It's coming alive. The computer's back. Okay, so Quakers. Quakers, they were like a very woke-esque colony. They believed in diversity, not only of religion, but of people. They were very diverse. Okay, first of all, Quakers were not diverse, but they celebrated it. So let's say Quakers are pacifists. They're anti-slavery. I'm going to spell words wrong right now, and the internet is forever, and it's going to be rough. They're pacifists. They're anti-slavery. What else are they? Pacifist, anti-slavery. They're pro women's equality. Oh, you guys are funny. You guys are cracking me up with all this. Sid, we'll get to days in a minute. Quakers were actually different. They're pro women's rights. You guys are really asking a lot of questions about deism. Everyone else is like different, bad. But in like Pennsylvania and the middle colonies in general, there was just a lot of diversity. Hold on, I feel like I need to autofocus this. Give it a second. Yes, Pennsylvania, they were the most democratic of anyone. I don't feel like that focused anything. I feel like it's still not very. Oh, that's much better. They had peaceful, that's correct. They had peaceful relationship with the natives. All very true, all very true. Okay. Georgia was established as a haven for debtors. What do we need to know about Philadelphia? Not a whole lot right now. Pennsylvania did have a constitution. They had something that was called like the framework. I'm sorry, guys. I keep like adjusting the autofocus. I apologize. Okay, so that's enough for the colonies. I want us to be able to move past that and move forward. And we're going to talk about the Great Awakening and Enlightenment. And then, y'all, it is like we started this about an hour ago, so I don't want to go on for too much longer. So we'll talk about the Great Awakening. We'll talk about Enlightenment, slavery. I feel like you guys, we had those discussions in class. So I feel like you're pretty strong on that. If there are any other questions, anything else you guys want to talk about, we can. But let's be moving right along. Were the Quakers being pacifists for the reason they call it The city, well, that's what Philadelphia actually means. Sabrina will talk about deism when we talk about enlightenment. You guys in deism, goodness gracious. Okay, so during this time, thing is happening. So through this period, like I said, lots of things are happening. We have everything's kind of on the rise. And there's two like big events that kind of happen, and they a little bit coincide with a similar time period. Oh goodness. Yeah, I was like flash of lightning. Not really, but you know. So we had the Great Awakening, and we have Enlightenment. Guys, deism isn't like scary. Like, don't be freaking out about deism. Sometimes when you guys don't know something, you act like it just was like, oofta. Don't always freak out if you don't know something right away. So we have this period. We have this period called Enlightenment, and it's led by philosophers like Voltaire, and specifically the big one for us in U.S. history. Like I said, us, and it's like United States. Is oh, Max, that's what, so somebody said, isn't it something like God created the universe and just let things after that just take care of itself? And Max just said like The Sims. Oh my gosh, I love that so much. That is, I love that analogy so much. It's like when you leave your Sims and you just kind of like let them do them. Max, I haven't seen, people have not referenced The Sims in front of me in so long. I wasted so many hours putting Sims through college when I was in college and should have been studying. Oofda. Okay, so, um, well, there you go, Sid. That's fair. There is no general purpose, and nothing actually comes out of you creating that aside from learning how to run other people. Not exactly, Bree. Not exactly. Yeah, not quite that. So enlightenment. So enlightenment is led by John Locke. Okay, so John Locke created this idea that there are certain natural laws in the world. There's natural laws that run the world, you know, there's natural rights, or I say natural laws, it's natural rights. Sorry, it's nighttime. Like life, liberty, and property. And he says the government's job is to protect these rights. Then we have people like Sir Isaac Newton. He's like, guys, the world doesn't just happen because science. There's a natural order to the world. And then we have all of this kind of sponsored the idea of like they believed in the idea of deism that yes, there's a God who created the world, but then he kind of just like leaves it and like just lets it do its thing. Um, Hey, Amelia. Yes, but Bree, that's not exactly it. Mostly it's the fact that God created, there's a God who created the earth, and then he just leaves. And he just like lets it, he leaves it to its own. Pursuit of Happiness was actually not necessarily Thomas Jefferson, the Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Happiness. He pulled that from some of William Blackstone's writings. So just fun fact, feels everything. The person who like though embodied all of this the most in terms of like America. There were several of them, like several of our founding fathers were Enlightenment thinkers. The most popular one is Ben Franklin. He was not only educated, he was um, it's when Ben Franklin, he was an inventor, he was a politician, he was kind of like a Renaissance man. He did everything. He had a college, he had all these things. Like he was like the epitome of enlightenment. Oh, that's a good one. DIYism for deism, do yourselfism. That's awesome. I'm here for that. And these ideas were also followed by Thomas Jefferson, liked this. You know, we have George Washington was a supporter of this, James Madison. All of these people were like, yes, we like enlightenment. There is an order to the world. And essentially what this did is it kind of pulled us away from the idea that like, you know, if something happens, if someone gets ill, it's not that, oh, that like God is punishing them. It became, oh, this is science. They're infected with something. Like this is an infection, or they're ill. Like that's kind of more what it became. But all of this kind of made some people feel very like worried because when we focus on science, there are some people who believe that when you're focusing on science, you're focusing on science and you're getting rid of kind of like getting rid of the God in society, and so that bothered a lot of people. It irked a lot of people. We have the Salem witch trials that happen in the Salem witch trials that are happening in Massachusetts. And guys, remember, kind of going back to hopping back here to this world, the Massachusetts Bay Colony also. The witch trials. Oh gosh. The Salem witch trials were basically when any woman was like said anything that was like, oh, this is a thing, or like this is, you know, what the world is. They were like accused of witchcraft, and it was generally. Let me double check on something. It was things like, you know, when Anne Hutchinson had the audacity to say that like God spoke to her, they're like witchcraft, witchcraft, the devil is in you, which that's not what that was. But Salem witch trials is also just something to kind of think about. Like you don't. It kind of gave people like people started trusting the Puritan Church less and less, and so because of that, we established the great. We have like the Great Awakening kind of is on the rise. The Great Awakening was established pretty much run by George Whitefield, and I hope I'm spelling this right. He has a kind of weird name, and Jonathan Edwards. Guys, the internet is forever, and I'm spelling everything wrong. It's fine. And Jonathan Edwards. George Whitefield is actually pen pals with Ben Franklin. Ben Franklin would observe George Whitefield teach. Ben Franklin's favorite kind of Great Awakening minister during this time is George Whitefield. He appreciates that George Whitefield focuses on serving the poor, serving the orphans, serving the widows. And that's kind of where Ben Franklin kind of had issues with people who were, he felt like that's kind of where the church was missing the mark, but he always appreciated George Whitefield's service George Whitefield service, and he would even watch as like and like try to calculate how many people could hear George Whitefield in an area. And so mostly the Great Awakening, the sermons and stuff, they centered around, they were very like, what is the word I want to use? They were very like, they were very dramatic. They were fascinating. It was like going from like sitting in, people would sit in church and like would sing the hymns. The preacher would come, he would say words to you, and then you would lead, and hum dee dum dee dum, dee dum dee dum dee dum, bum 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 bum. And so, what's it called? So because of that, they go into this like, they go into this like, they go into the Great Awakening with like, they're shocked because people during these, it was like, oh jeez, Alexa off. Alexa, remind me in 15 minutes to move my car. Okay, it's like very dramatic. Like people are like collapsing. People are like, people cannot control themselves. And it is like a very, it's focusing on the fact that people should have a personal relationship with God. It's focusing on the fact that like all people are sinners and therefore need to repent. And it's very just like, people really get into it. People like collapse, and faint. People are very emotionally, we're gonna call it mood, but they're triggered. And it moves them towards change. One of the most popular ones, Zach, that makes me laugh really hard. Jonathan Edwards has a really famous speech that I know we read when I was in my junior year of high school. I don't know if you guys are going to read it. And it was called Sinners at the Hands of an Angry God. And guys, it is like the imagery in it. At some point, he talks about like holding a, what's it called? He talks about it's like a spider, holding a spider over like a hot boiling, like a hot, like not water, but it's like over some liquid, and like how the spider like recoils, and like the imagery is insane. And for my kids who like Hamilton, fun fact: Jonathan Edwards, Aaron Burr's grandfather. Fun fact. It's not something you're gonna have to know, but for people who like Hamilton, it's just a cool thing. That's why in Wait for It, when he says, my grandfather was a fire and brimstone preacher, but there's things that the some and hymns don't teach you, something like that. What's the difference between the Enlightenment and the Great Awakening? The Enlightenment is an intellectual movement. The Great Awakening is a religious movement. So Enlightenment is intellectual. Great Awakening is religious, because this was about people like spread. This was a spread of religion. This encouraged people to have a personal relationship with God. And what I said in class was, all right, I'm gonna write it down. I'm trying to find a color to write with that I haven't written with yet. I can't find any of them. Oh no, this is tragical. You guys, my unicorn. My unicorn has nothing. One unicorn. Ooh, guys, I found my business cards. Look at those. You don't even know. Okay, sorry, fun fact. Harmonies and hymns don't teach it. Thank you. These two things happen at the same time. Natalie, they kind of did. It was like, but the Great Awakening was kind of like a reaction to Enlightenment. Like everyone's kind of focusing on this, and these preachers were like, wait, but God's still important. Here's why. And then we have, and then people were also, the Great Awakening is also like reaction to Puritanism, and the fact that like in Puritanism, it was only the person like the clergy who had contact with God. And so in this case, it encouraged a personal relationship with God, and if it made people think, if I am important, my God, I should also be important to my government. And Enlightenment basically said the world does, and kind of in Enlightenment, it was there are natural laws. The world doesn't just happen to us. There are natural laws that we can control. You can prove yourself. You can get better at things. You are not just like, so Enlightenment, I would say, would be kind of like the world doesn't happen to us. We control our fate. If a man wanted to change parts of his personality, he could. If a man wanted to, that was a genuine thing. So these aren't like quotes that people said, but this is kind of like the outcome, if that makes sense. Do we feel better about Great Awakening? And oh, and one of the things in the Great Awakening to also know the difference between is old light churches and there's new light churches. Old light churches is like old school, like the Anglicans. It's like the Puritans. And I want to say Presbyterians, they said. Yes, Antonia, that's kind of what that's kind of what both of these are going to lead us to. Both of these thoughts kind of lead us to revolution. Revolution is not only like a possible thing, but it's our right to do. The new lights, that would be any of the new religions coming out at this time. Hold on. Or the people who like embraced revivals. The computer might freak out in a second, guys. I'm sorry. Okay. It went away, now it's coming back. Third bullet under old light, it basically means Presbyterians. Okay, sorry guys, it should come back in a second. Yeah. There we go. We're democratic, all social classes are welcome, very good. So the awakening is basically a bunch of guys that were scared that people want to be forgetting about God, so they popped off and like attention to themselves. Yes. Okay. So Ellie, I want to kind of clarify what you said. It's not that these people genuinely like believed in what they were doing, but they felt like in turning towards science, people were turning away from God. And so because of that, they were like, hey, God's important too. And so because of that, they drew attention to a personal relationship with God. They drew attention to the fact that I like this one said democratic. It was very democratic because they said the thing is you don't need clergymen in order to talk to God. You don't need to have a pastor to talk to God. You can talk to God all on your own, which was like this crazy idea that no one had ever really told the people before. That was not like a thing. And so Christine, that's a good question. Yes, Ellie, they sparked a revival because it reminded people that like they could think for themselves, and it challenged them to question not only religious authority but then later political authority. Christine just asked, so did the two contradict each other, or did they go hand in hand? It depends on who you ask, and it's kind of like it depends on who you ask. Largely, it was a contradiction. It was largely a contradiction, but I mean, who's to say how people exactly feel about religion? But especially if you believed in deism, then you wouldn't believe in a lot of the things that they're doing over here. Oof. Retracted, redacted. Okay. What other questions do we have about this? I don't even know why she's in Portoni. I thought she was right. I thought. No, wrong? Okay. Tony, you good. Um, what other questions do you guys have before we sign off? This has been going on for like an hour, 20 minutes. So you do you, but tell me what's up. What are you still confused about? What do you want to know? Oh, geez. Jason, I'm aware. I'm just here. I'm here for you guys. Okay. Do we need to know the specific religions besides? Not really. Not really. And Frosty, I'm going based on what you guys said you needed. So I'm just trying to help. So put that salt back in the shaker. Ooh, what was that word? That is a great thing to look up on Wikipedia. And to know for later. Don't worry about that now. The printing press increased around the colonies, which would then contribute to the revolution. That's true. New light churches. Okay, yes. If we know one thing, what should it be? Yes, Sabrina. Yeah, I mean, just like no things. I don't know, guys. Just be able to have kind of a general feeling of like, okay, what did they care about here? What did these people care about? If you know, if you kind of understand what people cared about, like what was their like shtick, that'll help you help kind of guide you. The Stoner Rebellion, not for tomorrow, but like in life, probably. What was the one slave rebellion that worked where the slaves tried to escape to Florida? That was a Stoner Rebellion. I was told by Tony. There you go. What new religion was created by the Great Awakening? A few of them. Okay, guys, I gotta go because I have to like live my best life because I literally walked in the door, and like cleared off my countertop so I could do this and all the things. And Dino Mosquito. All these questions are making me question my knowledge of U.S. history. Oof. Here's the thing, guys. There's some stuff on that list that we didn't talk about in class and that I didn't talk about here. Not to say they're not important, but those are things you need to know for the AP test, and you should know them. Like that's something you should write down, but don't worry about it too much. Thank you, Zach, for reminding me to go move my car because I genuinely had actually forgotten about that, even though I was reminded like 2 or 3 times. So, anyways, you guys have a wonderful evening, guys. Go through, read the AMSCO. I feel like that's going to help you and make you feel like a little bit more relieved. Read the story. Read the story. Thank you, guys. Oh, you guys are kind. Blessings. I like how there's like everybody say thank you. It's like when you leave a party. Like you leave a party when you're a kid, like everyone say bye. Everyone say hi to hey Sierra. Hey Sierra. Everybody get sleep. They're fine. Oh hey guys, orange out tomorrow. Orange out tomorrow. Wear all the orange. All of it. Leave no orange at home. It'd be really funny if someone came with like a box of oranges tomorrow. Oh, you guys are funny. I enjoy you. Okay. Laters. How do I end the recording? I always forget. I don't forget. This makes me go on forever. That would be terrifying. Tomorrow's orange out, yes.